We are walking through the Lord's Prayer, or the Our Father, taking it phrase by phrase, word by word, into 8 parts, and looking at each phrase or word in a more contemplative way that can help us to deeply sort of pray the prayer, more than a rote repeating of it. We come to section 6 here, the 6th phrase. And I think this is where the prayer takes a bit of a turn, as we've been praying a lot sort of vertically, our relationship with God. These next 2 phrases talk about us in a more horizontal way. That's how I interpret it anyway. It may not seem that way at first with this particular phrase. The 6th phrase we look at is when we pray, "Give us today our daily bread," this section of the prayer. Understand that when Jesus was here on earth, the historical Jesus was most likely a peasant. He was not a wealthy person. He did not have a lot of money, and he did not know necessarily where his next meal was coming from. And most of his followers, at times there were thousands of them, were also from the peasant class. So this particular part of the prayer in its original historic context is quite literal. The prayer is, we don't know what's for dinner. We don't have food to feed our children. Give us, Father, give us today our daily bread. And Jesus taught that your Father who loves you will feed you. And often the way that ended up practically working out was that as this new community forms around the kingdom and believing in Jesus, they take care of one another because we are a family. And there's almost always enough food to go around when there's enough people in a room. Someone has bread this particular day who can share it. They may not have bread tomorrow, but someone else will have bread, and they will share that bread. The reality is this is the absolute hardest phrase in the prayer for most people in America to pray today, because almost all of us know exactly where our next meal is coming from. We know that we are in no danger of starving to death, that there's food in our pantry, or there's plenty of space in our debit or credit card to go get food whenever we want. And as a result, I think many wealthier, middle-class Americans skip this part of the prayer as they pray it. I would suggest to you that this prayer works 2 ways. It's, Father, give us today our daily bread. And if you don't need to pray that part of the prayer, then what I think this should spur in us is this desire to answer the prayer for our brothers and sisters. God, if he wants to, I suppose, can do what he did with Moses and send manna from heaven to feed hungry people. But more often than not, he uses people who have extra to feed those who don't have any. And so this becomes a part of the prayer where we begin to think, who in my neighborhood, who in my city, who in my world does not have bread today? Who does not have shelter today? Who does not have water today? Who in my neighborhood does not have health care today? Who does not have a friend today? And if I have all those things already, I don't have to ask God to give them to me today. I can thank him for them and then move on and become part of the solution. So as you pray this part of the prayer, this is the part that gives you homework or marching orders. You ask God, show me who needs bread, and I will take it to them.